Oh, welcome in to 11 Personnel presented by Monticello Bank. Nick Roush and Adam Luckett are here to get you ready for the Cats and the Cox in the Sunglass Bowl. South Carolina is coming to Kroger Field Saturday at 3:30 for the first ever SEC on ABC game. It's no secret on this podcast that Shane Beamer is not our favorite coach, and we've had to eat some crow. We've had to eat some losses, and they've tasted like doo-doo, just a big old pile of poopy. And I don't know about you, Lucky, but I'm tired of eating that crow. I'm tired of it.
I'm sure you are. I heard you Monday, and you're pretty fired up. I can only imagine what your daily radio show has been like this week. So, yeah, I mean, you're already calling out Shane Beamer. They're on the football podcast, and you're in rare form already. So, welcome to the beginning of football season. This is the beginning of the nervous energy, Nick, right? Like, no one was really nervous going into last week. We got nervous because we thought they weren't going to play a game. But this is where nervous energy, because this is when it could be, your season is riding a success or a failure in large part of this game. Like, how relevant are you going to be in this race in the SEC? You got to win this one to even have a chance. So there's a lot riding on this, and you don't want to lose to South Carolina a third time in a row. And then I wrote about this at KSR Plus. Join now. We got a 50% sale running, promo code homegrown. Just wrote about the home record, really, Nick. You got to win home games. That's what matters. You got to start winning more home games against your peers.
You got to be more homegrown.
You got to be grown at home and win some home games.
Let's talk about that nervous energy for a second, because I don't have it right now in a sense of what if Kentucky loses. That hasn't even crossed my mind. That's the point of the week I am. I feel like there's a flow chart of like irrational optimism after a game, and then like, oh no, what could go wrong? And then you get the highs again, and the first time something bad happens, that pessimism comes back. But if we're going to talk about nervous energy and what could go wrong, I guess for me, the source of what my nervous energy would be just, well, what if the offense isn't good? I mean, Southern Miss, that team wasn't any good. I mean, Kentucky did all of the right things. I mean, aside from that interception in the red zone, like I don't really know what more you could have asked for in a lot of instances. So I think that's the part that I'm kind of chewing on this week, is I have the belief there. I've seen it. I know what they can be, but will they be it? That's where my nervousness lies, is just what this offense will do against the South Carolina defense, who has a really good front, who can apply a lot of pressure off the edges. That's really where my questions, my nervous energy is. Do you have any nervous energy, or do you have anything that could soothe my worries, my anxiety at all? Is South Carolina better or worse than we think they might be on defense?
I think that's fair, because the offense has stunk 3 years in a row against South Carolina.
Yeah.
Like, just call it what it is. Like, they did some good things in 2021, but they couldn't stop fumbling. Will Levis throws the interception on the deep shot. It tries to force it in there when really all they needed to do was run it down there. Kind of let South Carolina hang around in that game. You have Will Levis footgate the year after that. Play Kai Sharon, first play of the game. Put the ball on the turf on a trick play, on a gadget play. You're never really in it. And then last year, Nick, that was a really frustrating performance by the Kentucky offense. Yeah. Really, really frustrating. Couldn't run the ball with efficiency at all. You were like, gave Ramon, for the first time all year, Ramon Jefferson was getting like work. And then Ray Davis was kind of in and out of the lineup, and then he was tweeting at the coaches after the game.
Yeah.
They kept throwing go balls. None of them were working. It was just a really frustrating game. So I think that is a fair camp to be in. It just, the offense has got to go out and prove it against these guys. And so it's a new cast of characters and all of that, but they got to go out and score points against Clayton White defense. They really haven't done that yet. And then the turnovers are concerning. They are -6 in 3 meetings with Shane Beamer on the sidelines. In the turnover column, they have not won the turnover battle yet. They split it in 2022. They're
Well,
-3 in 21 and -3 last year. Like, to me, that's the big thing. If you tell me Kentucky plays this to even, they're winning this football game. But if they lose a turnover battle, that's how South Carolina, I think, pulls an upset here.
if you believe in turnover luck, then scales got to start tilting in the right direction. But some of that was the nature of the Devin Leary. It's what he did. He liked to throw interceptions. So things were. It's a little different. It's a new era, which we're certainly going to spend a lot of
Batted
time.
balls last year. Batted balls were a big
Oh
thing in
my
this game
God,
last year.
that
I think it was like 5, 6, or 7. I mean, it was a huge deal in this game. That might have been why they threw deep so much down the sideline. It was because anything up the middle, that thing was getting shoved back.
that was an all-time bad road trip. We got an accident on the way down. I thought, oh, I'll just get a new bumper. The car ended up getting totaled. I was upset by that naturally. So by the time we got there, I drank myself to. It's. I haven't had a hangover as bad since like it. That was rough.
We're about to
And
hit
then
the
they had
road
the
to go.
sandstorm. They had the sandstorm guy there, like the real what's his name, and so they were really laying the sandstorm on thick. And then to really
Darude is
make
that guy's name.
yeah, and then to make matters worse, after the game, we're doing our rapid reaction on the field, and we got nailed by a bunch of sprinklers. Like, and we didn't even have the worst time. Ryan Lemon got punched in the face and knocked out. Like that was an all-time bad vibes road trip. I mean, just my poor car. R.I.P. That was tough. Oh yeah, and I forgot we got
forgot
pulled.
the speeding ticket on the way home.
Yeah, we got pulled over on the way home by a state trooper. That was a rough road trip. Like it. Yeah, it sounds like you haven't had the best car luck recently either.
Yeah, I mean, in the chat, feel free to share your stories. But Nick, I hit not one, but 2 deer on the Bluegrass Parkway. Coming home from the game Saturday at 3-ish in the morning. There's the evidence. He did me a favor. And both sides of my car look like that. Headlights are gone.
Oh, that's
Luckily,
tough.
still runs like a dream. The hood's fine. The grill is fine on the front, but they're on the side by the tire. It got smashed, and neither of my doors will open all the way. So
do we think it's salvageable? Or are we optimistic, or is it a donezo?
As you know, this used to be my line of business, Nick. I'm about 50-50 on this. So I'm not super optimistic, but I'm not super pessimistic on it either. I think it could go either way. We'll see what the body shop says later this week. But
man, that's just a long day.
This all happened 4 days after our SUV engine got shot and blew up. So Luckett's out 2 cars in the same week. So that's not fun. But if you want to throw some super chat my way, I really appreciate it.
Oh, breaking news, Mr. Adam Luckett. Not like your car's broken. We have our first ever injury report. First ever official injury report for the first time. And oh my goodness, we have actual outs next to players who we knew were out for the season. But they're confirmed. They're all there. So we have it. If you missed the news, the SEC, they're requiring teams before SEC games to have official injury reports. So we'll get them Wednesday night before every single SEC matchup, and then 90 minutes before kickoff. And they're listed as you would expect from like what you would see in the NFL, the same exact classifications. So DJ Waller, who you said was practicing today, he's listed as questionable, whereas Josh Caddis, who also practiced today, the tight end is listed as probable after both players missed week 1 against Southern Miss. You don't have any surprises with the outs. It's the Cortland Ford, Josiah Hayes, Tavian Gadsden, Cortland Ford, Harley Gilmore, Darian Henry Young, and Chip Trainum. The one that I didn't know was on here, or 2, I should say, Jamarian Wilcox and Keyshawn Silver are both listed as probables. Oh, and in the middle of all of this, Adam's loving wife says, you forgot to mention the possum you also hit. So Luckett also nailed a possum. Maybe not. Don't take the Bluegrass Parkway home at 3 a.m. Maybe that's the moral of the story. There was a bit of a surprise on the South Carolina injury report. Ja'Kai Moore, the offensive lineman, who I believe was a starter for them, he's listed as out. But one player you were expecting to see on there, wide receiver Jared Brown, one of their top pass catchers, you thought he would make an appearance. He is not on here as probable or questionable. We've got Bengali
Nick,
Kamara.
I'm just I'm on website. I'm double dipping right here. So yeah,
Right,
I thought Jared Brown would be on there. Bengali Kamara is actually a Pitt transfer, was competing for spots, so that's notable. He was kind of a backup linebacker. And then Gilbert Edmond is one of their edge guys that Mark Stoops talked about. He's not a starter, but he's their third edge guy, and he's questionable. So that is notable loss there for South Carolina.
Yeah,
or potential losses, I should say.
I think that Dylan Edwards, they don't want him to just take all of the snaps. They want to use him. I mean, he's a true freshman, right? He's just getting started. Former 5-star player.
Dylan Stewart, yes.
Sorry, I keep calling him Dylan Edwards. That's the receiver.
You're thinking
of
the
right?
You're thinking of the running back that was at Colorado, is now at Kansas State.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Isn't there an Edwards receiver too?
They got Dylan Stewart, Oregon did, from Texas A&M, receiver.
Okay, yeah, right. And then this is Dylan Stewart too.
You just can't get the Dylans.
But
Dylan
nevertheless, I'm getting them all mixed
Evan
up.
Stewart. Evan Stewart is at Oregon, excuse me.
Okay, there we go. Evan Stewart. Oh, gosh, there's an Evan Stewart, a Dylan Stewart, and a Dylan Edwards. So I'm just conflating all three players into one. But Dylan Stewart was a 5-star recruiting win out of the DMV. I don't know what kind of sauce Beamer has cooked up there, but he was outstanding in his debut. Coming out of high school, he was ranked as the number 17 player, number 3 edge in the class of 2024. They got another great edge from there in that area a year prior, but they're playing him at wide receiver. I don't really know why they're doing that. He's not really doing anything offensively, but he could be damn good on the edge. He could be an NFL player if Nick Harbor just decided that's what he wanted to do. But with Stewart, to go back to your initial point about Gilbert Edmond, it was his first game. He has a lot of disruptive traits, but you do want to limit the snap count just to make sure he's effective, because he's never gone up against competition like this, even though that was against Old Dominion. He performed well. Both him and Kyle Kennard combined for 4 forced fumbles. They only recovered 2 of those, but I believe South Carolina in total, 2 picks, 2 fumble recoveries, 5 sacks. They were very disruptive against Old Dominion, and a big reason why was because of that impact freshman in Dylan Stewart. But I thought it was noteworthy when Bush Hamden was, like, how many times have we heard, whether it's Liam Cohen, Rich Scangarello, Eddie Grand, we got to emphasize ball security this week. You already mentioned it right off the top. But how much can you actually do to get ball security? Like, what can you really do, right? Hold on to the damn ball, double up, cover up. Like, it is what it is. There's not a whole lot that you could say other than take care of the ball. You can do your turnover drills. They have drills like that where guys are using pads. They're trying to knock the ball out of their hands. I thought what Bush Hamden said was interesting because it was different. And I was essentially, because I asked him to say something different. I was like, what can you do besides say take care of the ball? And part of it was play fundamental football, be sound with the football. That carries over, right? Like, if you're a running back and you're focused on 2 points of contact at all times, especially when going through traffic, then you're going to take care of the ball. Like, that's just second nature. If you're doing things the right way, the little things will take care of the big things, right? But he made a point about how on some of those turnovers, the ball got sticky in the quarterback's hands when they were forced to block the edges in one-on-one situations. So what that tells me is that, A, Kentucky's not going to put their offensive tackles in a ton of one-on-one situations, particularly in obvious passing situations. And two, if they do, it's a play designed to get it out of Brock Vandegrift's hands really quick. Whether it's a screen pass or it's a quick read, you maybe got to look crisscross applesauce out there on the outside where there's mesh routes between the guys. So I will pick play if that paints a clearer picture for you. So I like that when Bush Hamdan talks, Mr. Luckett, you get a sense of like the greater plan that's going on in how the wheels are turning, right? Like we may not know specifically what the hell he's got in store for us, but we know that there's a plan and that we're not just bring on the blitz. Come on, Dylan Stewart, come on down.
Yeah, I think like Bush is he's just a little different, I think, delivery wise, Nick, than Cohen and Scangarello. I mean, they're all somewhat a little different, but he just, I don't know how to describe it yet. I'm still trying to get a feel for him. But he's definitely more kind of, I feel like he's more willing to engage in kind of more minutia talk, like schematic talk. And so you get some of that from him. To me, just where you were going on there, your little speech there while I try to get this post up. One, Kentucky's more banged up football team than South Carolina. Like 13 guys. They doubled up South Carolina here on this first report. And I mean, I'll be interested to see how big these reports get as the season goes on. And then other than that, like Keyshawn Silver is going to play, but he has banged up. Jamarian Wilcox, who I can confirm seemed like full go at practice and was doing some stuff after practice. He was out there today, but he's listed as probable. Grant Godfrey and Josh Caddis are two other guys I saw out there. They're listed as probable. So anyone familiar with these NFL injury, probable means they're playing. Like,
yeah,
typically that means they're playing. Questionable, it can go either way, and doubtful pretty much means they're not playing. So Brandon White and Devin Smith, who were not guys that are going to probably contribute, they're out. And then obviously the guys we already know that are out. And then DJ Waller is a big one, but he was also out there today. So if he was out there on Wednesday, Nick, practicing, I think that's a good sign for him moving forward. And so
sounds
all
like
in all, this
practicing a few days after Caddis, right? Like,
yeah. All in all, I think this is a positive for Kentucky, but it is notable that we got these getting guys on here. And I think this is going to be a good addition for the league. Just to have these, and so we're not, one, for our job, so we don't have to scramble game day, right? We're going to get one of these 90 minutes before the game start. But also for those of you who like to know some information on a Wednesday, So I think overall this is good for the conference.
I don't think we're going to have too many I don't know what you call them, Charlie Hustles, the guys that would have some information about certain players and their health status early in the week, so you get their bets in before the number changed at all. There used to be some of that going on. I feel like it's less and less. And this is, I mean, like, let's be honest, that's why these are exist now, is because of the proliferation of sports gambling. You kind of have to. And I thought it was very amusing that both coaches talked about how open and willing they are to share injuries. Just like, oh, I'm not, if it's out, I'm not going to play any games, or I'm just going to tell you. And I mean, both said basically the same quote in different ways.
Yeah.
When Shane Beamer just like acted like Juice Wells was going to play all year last year, and he never did. He never came back. He just kept stringing us along, And meanwhile, Mark Stoops, I mean, they had Will Levis pose for a photo, and then let him out there. Like, it's like, come on. I know both of you guys. You all play the games, but it doesn't seem like they're playing games here. Maybe as the season goes on, there might be more games being played, if you will. Like, I think any guy, like, I could see the probables getting a little overwhelming, where it looks like there's 30 dudes on there at some point in time, just because guys are going to miss practices,
Or 38 questionables.
That's the one that would make me uneasy. The probables, I'd be like, oh, okay, they're fine. Questionable though, might get a little leery.
Yeah. Back to you while I was doing some website work. I think a big part of this week, Nick, is just how does Kentucky's offensive line dealt with South Carolina's front.
Yes.
Like, to me, that's kind of the biggest storyline in this game. I think for South Carolina, that is a matchup that you feel like if you're on the South Carolina side, we have to win that matchup. If we don't win that matchup, we're probably going to lose the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. Kentucky's got, I think, in my opinion, the playmakers are better. And then I think you can make the argument LaNorris Sellers may have a higher ceiling than Brock Vandagriff. But as of right now, Brock Vandagriff seems to have the higher floor. And he's got the better passing game targets, I would say.
Yes.
So you go through all of that, and like this matchup favors Kentucky, and I think Kentucky's laying 10 points here for a reason. But the one area where South Carolina, I think, could maybe find some leverage over Kentucky is with their defensive front. So how does Kentucky counter that, and how does Bush Hamdan counter that? I mean, to me, that's the game within the game. That's the game. I thought Eli Cox played his best game at Kentucky. Like, I would put that game up with any game he's played so far. He was doing things that we haven't really seen, like climbing to the second level and walling off linebackers. He just looked, I thought he looked better in pass protection. He looked good. Marcus Cox looked like his typical self. Thought Jagger Burton did some good things. Right side worries me a little bit. I saw some good things from Jalen Farmer in the run game, but pass game, I think he has a lot to clean up. There was one shot Vandagriff took from the 340-pound nose tackle, number 51, Southern Miss had. That was simply because Farmer didn't communicate inside. That's what it looked like to me. And I thought Gerald Mincy didn't have necessarily a great game. Mincy I'm less worried about because I've seen him do it, at least in an SEC game. Like, he's put together good games, where Farmer's kind of a big unknown. So that's the concerning part, matching up against the South Carolina front. And I do want to say this about the South Carolina front.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this freshman, this guy could just be the next version of, I don't know, Jadeveon Clowney.
Right.
Dylan Stewart. Or he could be up and down like we see for the next Von Miller. Or he could be up and down like true freshmen typically are. This is a hard position to play. It's physically taxing. He's going to face bigger, stronger offensive tackles throughout the year. Now, Kyle Kennard, the Georgia Tech transfer, had a big game Saturday, Nick. But he did not do that consistently at Georgia Tech. So I don't know if he's going to be a total game wrecker there. And Gilbert Edmond, the other guy I talked about, is a good defensive end, but he's no one that scares you. I think where you're sleeping on South Carolina probably is in the middle. I think they have three good defensive tackles in Alex Huntley, Tonka Hemingway, and TJ Sanders. Tonka Hemingway was an absolute terror in this football game last year. So you got to watch it. Their interior is just, like, to me, it's almost as dangerous as the outside guys. And so the interior guys are some guys to watch. And the number one goal this week is to find ways to not let this defensive line wreck your game plan. A good way to do that is find ways to establish the run, keep them off balance with motion shifts, and to move the pocket, right? Move Brock Vandagriff out of the pocket and do some stuff with him as a rollout passer, which we saw last week. I think Kentucky will probably figure that out, but there might be some feeling out early in the game, and we got to see what this O-line does against a good group here in week 2.
One thing you didn't mention, too, when trying to handicap South Carolina is, yeah, they were pretty good against Old Dominion, who is one of the worst teams in college football. That they can't be overstated enough. Ian pointed out in the chat that they only had 288 yards versus Sunbelt school at home. And it wasn't just any Sunbelt school. It was a Sunbelt school picked to finish 6th in the East, whereas Southern Miss was picked to finish 6th in the West. Not a great football team. So that's the other part of this too, where maybe they looked a lot better than what they actually are. It's not crazy. It's not the craziest thing to think, that we might be overselling their performance in week 1.
Yeah. I mean, we'll have to see. It's a measuring stick, I think, for both sides. One thing that's interesting here is, like, you look at the pieces on South Carolina's defense, and there's a lot to believe in. They've got good linebacker depth, I would say. Nick Imamori is one of the better safeties, I think, in the conference. O.D. Fortune is a good cornerback. Defensive line, I think it's got good players and some depth at both defensive tackle and defensive end. there's some good things on defense, but they haven't had a good defense yet. Now, I say all this willingly knowing that Kentucky has not played well against this defense.
Right.
So we'll see how good they end up being. But I'm very interested to see kind of what Hamden draws up and how he kind of attacks again this week. And again, varying tempos too, Nick, can help. Like if if this pass rush ends up giving Kentucky a ton of problems, let's say the tackles are struggling. You can change snap counts, you can change tempo, and all of that can help you find some ways to counter or slow something like that down. Again, I'm always a little bit more worried about the interior than the guys on the edge, specifically because I know Kentucky's got a good left tackle, bare minimum, with Marcus Cox. So we'll see what they can do. I think on the other side, it's been interesting out of Columbia, Nick. There's been a lot of do not panic about LaNorris Sellers.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of he was just nervous and a lot of that because
that might make you a little bit more nervous. I want to get to more of that in a second, but I do have some breaking news like it.
Okay.
If you visit gametime.co right now, there's a zone deal, 10% off, $44 to watch the Cats and the Cox this Saturday afternoon. $44 a ticket? What? It's insane. That's because Game Time, it's the best app out there for fast, convenient, last-minute tickets on the web, whether you're visiting them online at gametime.co or downloading the app. Game Time is the place to find your tickets. I prefer these tickets, though. That's what's great is at Game Time, look at when you pick your seat, you can see the vantage point. And right now, there's a pair, row 5 in section 207. Fifth row upper deck is just primo, absolute primo location. That's my favorite spot to watch a game. It's almost like you're able to see the all 22 on film. It's outstanding. You can also get in for as little as $65 in the end zone. So what are you waiting for? Don't miss this enormous game that could really dictate the fortunes for both teams this season, this Saturday at Kroger Field. Get on over to Game Time. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps and you're set. Just download the Game Time app and use redeem code KSR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's the Game Time app. Promo code KSR for $20 off your first purchase. Appreciate our friends at Game Time. Look, I think the fans that bought tickets to watch South Carolina in the opener on Game Time, I'm not saying they wanted a refund, but they were probably a little disgruntled because the stat line that LaNorris Sellers put up, it was not ideal. It was not ideal whatsoever. I mean, they ended up running the ball on 60% of their offensive snaps because he was only completing 10 of 23 passes. I'm not good at math like it, but a little mental math, 43% of his completions for 114 pass yards. Not great. Not great in a minute. In any way you cut it. I guess maybe you could say, well, at least he ran the ball decently. 22 carries, 68 yards. But if you take out the sacks,
18 for 100 is what he did with non-sack.
Okay. But he still took 4 sacks. He's a big guy. That's not good decision making.
Add the sacks in. It's 27 pass plays. He had an incomplete pass or a sack on 17 of 27 plays.
Yeah.
So you had a no gain or a loss that on 17 to 27 plays. That's a lot. It's no way to live.
Oh, it's not good.
Yeah, here's the thing. I think this is the thing you have to understand, I think, about what South Carolina is this year. They have made the decision to go all in on the LaNorris Sellers.
Mm-hmm.
Local product, was a monster as a senior and has the raw physical tools where he's going to draw comps to Tim Tebow, Cam Newton, Dak Prescott, Anthony Richardson. Big arm, can throw it a mile, can move, fast, athlete. But in that game, the game was fast for him, number one, from my eyes. He struggled with accuracy, specifically short to intermediate. Struggled with accuracy on the move on rollouts. And then he's got a big arm, can hit some big arm passes, but do they have the receivers that can win vertically? and get open. And the time they did, and they schemed something up and got open, who was supposed to be their best receiver this year, Jared Brown, had a stone cold drop. So, like, it's not only like they need LaNorris Sellers to be a star, and they're trying to shift to kind of this, I would say, kind of a run spread option with him and Rocket Sanders. But he needs some help. And the offensive line, I think, is better for this year than South Carolina, but it's still got a ways to go. And then receiver-wise, they're in really rough shape out on the outside right now. They're playing a lot of young guys. They're in really rough shape.
That is as much of a shot to his growth as it is anything. I mean, Spencer Rattler could at least throw it up to Luckett, and then they had somebody else really good the year before,
so
too,
like,
if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think Dow Loggins, their offensive coordinator, even knows himself what like this good offense look like. For them to be good on offense, what it even looks like, right? There's a lot of workshopping, I think, going on with them, and it kind of aligns why I think this is a good matchup for Kentucky. You can even take out the teams like September, early SEC games. That's typically when Stoops' teams play their best. Like one of their best some of their best performances typically come in these early SEC games. Beamer is the opposite. His team typically plays their better games in November.
Yep, that's true.
So you're getting them in your wheelhouse where you played them in his wheelhouse last year. And so I like how that lines up. And then again, passing game, they are limited right now. They just are. There's no really getting around it. I think if you ask Johnny Gamecock, Nick, I think Johnny Gamecock would even tell us that. So for South Carolina, it's winning the football games. It's the old Mark Stoops recipe. Run the football, play defense, punt to win the field position battle.
Well,
and that's bad news, I think, going against against this Kentucky defense.
And here's the thing: throughout this South Carolina series, like one of the defining features of it is they always have a stud. There's always one guy that you can throw it up to, from Pharaoh Cooper to Deebo Samuel to Xavier Leggett. I mean, even going further back to Alshon Jeffrey, who was he on the losing end of that 2010 game? Maybe. I can't recall.
No, he was gone by then.
He was gone.
Actually, I think he was on the 2010 team. I take that back.
But they've always had one of those guys that just burns them, and you don't really have that. So you've got this 1-2 running punch, and it's just like, how are you going to ram your head against the wall to try to make this work? Especially, I mean, the offensive line it's well documented how rough of shape they were in a year ago. And, they've gotten somewhat better. I know they're starting another true freshman this year on the offensive line. That's tough sledding. But here's the other thing, Mark Stoops, his way of describing Sellers was he needs reps, and he's going to get better with every single one of them. And that's really the issue, right? Is that he just doesn't have any. He doesn't. It could, because a lot of his career is going to be, it's going to either make or break based on, processing between the ears. How sticky is that ball in the hands? How much does he try to be a hero and try to make something out of nothing because he's a great athlete? And here's the other part of that we aren't talking about in this equation at all, that I want to spend a good amount of time on. That's very important. Can you be a good quarterback if you wear rec specs? I'm wearing glasses right now. I'm a 4 eyes. But most college football players you don't see wearing rec specs. This makes LaNorris Sellers, he's like one of one. Look at how many football players can you name that wore rec specs or glasses while playing?
Rodrigo Blankenship.
Only one in recent memory I can remember. And then there's one famous one.
Did the Fridge wear rec specs?
Oh, I don't know.
I think did Walter Payton?
It wasn't Walter Payton. It was the other Hall of Famer from that era. Eric Dickerson wore rec specs.
Eric Dickerson.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, Pony Express. I'm pulling up a picture of the Fridge. No, the Fridge just had the awesome original cage face mask too. That was I mean, and the helmet looks so tiny on the Fridge. I mean, he just what an enormous human. What a guy, the Fridge. R.I.P. William Perry. Right? He's no longer with us. I don't believe so.
I'm not sure about that.
How many athletes, period? Because when I think of them, when I think of rec specs, I think of basketball.
The fridge is still alive, Nick.
Okay, good.
Rest in peace, Walter Payton.
Sweetness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How many like I can name a lot of basketball players who were rec specs. Can you rattle any off, Luckett?
Mark Curry.
The Flurry?
Yeah. It's the first one I got.
That's the first one, not Kareem, the Dream. That's I think that's the OG. And Horace Grant, Bulls to Magic.
Horace Grant's a good one.
Yeah. The James Worthy. It says Akeem Olajuwon. I don't buy that. A deep cut, Thurl Bailey, who was on that memorable NC State team for Jimmy V, that made the run. Thurl Bailey was like the second or third best player on that team. Here's one that I'm disappointed in you, Luckett, because you're a big Reds fan. He was a big Red Machine guy. Chris Sabo.
Kirk Heinrich wore the glasses there for a little bit in the NBA.
Okay.
Yeah, in the NBA he did.
Did Mario Chalmers wear them at Kansas and then like ditch them? Or
no,
maybe that
was
a high
another
school
Kansas
thing.
player that did that.
Yeah. Either way, it is an accessory that we don't see often, and I'm surprised we don't see more. Like, because how many times have you seen the dude go to the sideline and they're all like looking, staring at their eyes? And UK Cruiser mentions Kurt Rambis. That's a good one.
You mean that the Harrisons, the Harrison twins?
Yeah, like why didn't they just wear them? That could be swag. Ed Davender wore them for the basketball Cats back in the day. Shout out to Benjamin for throwing that one at us. Kurt Rambis, I think he didn't wear actual rec specs. I think he just wore glasses, like the big, thick, rimmed ones that were just enormous. So, LaNorris Sellers, if you're good, this will be a thing. It'll be beloved. But if you're bad, you might hear some stuff. Like Gamecock Johnny's gonna be well, if he took those glasses off and put some contacts in, maybe he could see a wide receiver down the field. That take's going to come when he goes 9 for 27 Saturday at Kroger Field, because that's really a lot of what this game comes at. I loved too that they're trying not to give bulletin board material, and it wasn't really bulletin board material, but the guy Torricelli, Simpkins for South Carolina, said, when he was asked about Deion, he's a big guy, but we got big guys too. We're going to get our hands on him, and we're going to push him down the field, and we're going to finish. And, this was minutes after Shane Beamer was like, yeah, he's just a game wrecker. He's going to get his. You just got to hope he doesn't mess up your whole game plan. You can't really get your hands on him, It's like, oh, well, this guy thinks he's going to get his hands on him, and he plays guard. He's going to have to take on Big Deion.
Yeah, that's just some friendly Big OL talk. I don't put too much into that. But yeah, that's a matchup Kentucky should win, obviously, with their front against the South Carolina running game and pass game. When it comes time to rush the passer, even today, Nick, Brad White talking about the offense. I think he got what concerns you about the South Carolina offense, and he talked about Sellers, and he didn't even mention the receivers at all. He just went straight to the tight ends. It's pretty I think they got a good tight end room, which I agree. I think I agree with that. Joshua Simon's a good player. They got Brady Hunt from Ball State transferred in. He's a good player. But the receivers are just lacking right now. And that should, especially for a young quarterback, make them easier to defend. Especially for an offense that wants to run the football that's into the teeth of Kentucky's defense. So for me, that's a matchup I think it's probably going to be a tough outing for South Carolina. They're going to have to find a way to engineer quick score, or not necessarily quick scores, but easier scores, whether that's in short fields, turnovers, special teams. So, I would have my antenna up this week for extra special team shenanigans in this football game. I would
Beamer
expect
did, and he did in week 1
unexpected.
already. It didn't work when he tried the fake, but he tried one already. It's right in his wheelhouse. And as you alluded to before, P. Lambeau ain't walking through that door. His special teams guru extraordinaire isn't there to make sure they can convert. We're going to talk about, our picks, our plays this weekend. Tomorrow on Pigskin Preview, we'll go live Thursday afternoon. Kentucky's up to a 10.5-point favorite. I'm South Carolina under 16.5 points. I mean, what world do they score more than 16.5 points unless
Again,
it's
special teams turnovers.
turnovers? Like that's it. That's the only way.
Yeah,
So,
but the only reason that scares me is because Kentucky has just been turnover prone against Clayton White's defenses for whatever reason.
well, I'm here to tell you, Luckett, Devin Leary ain't walking through that door, buddy. All right? Have a little faith.
Yeah, but
Have a
the
little
fumbles has almost been just as big an issue. Remember Chris Rodriguez down here a couple years ago?
Oh, yeah, that's how we got in the doghouse, right?
And him and Josh Ali just like were coughing up fumbles every other play. It seemed like there for a couple series.
I will say that the game when they had all of those fumbles, I was celebrating my 30th birthday, and I had to go back and rewatch it the next day because it was we had a couple Cokes that day. We got after it a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. Which, by the way, it's hard to do that. Like, you all don't get enough credit as fans for going out there, waking up early, drinking beer all day, living and dying with every snap. It's exhausting. I mean, we complain about staying up late, but like it's easy. We're locked in. We're working. We don't have to put the blood, sweat, and tears like you do on the line. We don't have to pound some beers to make sure the Cats bring one home. So, a hat tip to Big Blue Nation because you all certainly brought it in week 1. And I have no doubt in my mind that you're going to bring it in week 2. It's a lot harder than it looks, too. It's a lot harder than it looks, and it's not for the faint of heart. So thank you for your service.
Yeah, back to my season ticket days, I wouldn't even sit in my seat a lot of times. Like some of these bigger games, like I would last maybe a quarter, and then I was down in the end zone, standing with everyone else who I know just feels exactly like me. There's like 38 guys that just stand there and watch the game.
Just pace,
and
yeah.
And they're not with the people they came with or the family. They're just by themselves, just nervous wrecks down there. And so that was me. So I definitely feel that. I think the in stadium pops, Nick, I think those help because sometimes you can have a few drinks, get a little dehydrated during the game.
That happens.
So that now you can stay refreshed and last before the dehydration kicks in.
Well, you know who also is here to help, Mr. Luckett?
Who's that?
Our friends at Monticello Bank, proud presenting sponsors of 11 Personnel. They've been helping people for 128 years. 128 years helping people just like you across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. It's where people matter. That's their motto. That means competitive loans, competitive deposit rates, and a wide variety of customer-focused financial services that put the numbers on your side. My buddy, he shopped around. He was hanging out over here before, showing his house, selling his home. And I told him, dude, go check out the rates over at Monticello Bank. They'll hook you up before you make any one of your big purchases. Visit them at any of their 21 branches in 14 different markets across the Commonwealth, or you can shop online or bank online at mbcbank.com. Monticello Bank, where people matter. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Look at Kentucky covers the 10.5 and wins big if ... plays well.
Brock Vandergrift's the easy one here. I would also say the right side of that offensive line. That would be my answer. You don't want to just say the quarterback. I would say the right side of the offensive line.
Is that because that right side of the offensive line, it seemed like that's where they wanted to run the ball to? I kind of got that sense.
Well, I think in the run game, I think they did some good things. So, yeah, but pass pro was an issue in the game on Saturday.
So take care of Brock Vandegrift. I think it's also going to be important for Kentucky to run the ball. We saw them make a concerted effort to attack the edges to kind of loosen up the middle. I don't I don't
I
know if
think you'll
that.
see the same thing on Saturday.
Yeah. One player I'm going to keep a close eye on is Jamori Macklin. He's been getting a little more pub as of late because Cole Kubelik had some really nice things to share about him on the Cube Show this week. But we saw the one shot to him. I don't think it's crazy to think that he could just have a couple of those a game that just flip this thing upside down, right? Like maybe South Carolina does get a few turnovers and they are kind of hanging in there for a little bit, and then Macklin has the big play that is makes the crack in the dam that bursts loose. You know what I mean? I could see
Yeah.
Jamori Macklin being that guy Saturday against South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this when Kentucky recruited Macklin. We talked about this when they landed him, and we've talked about this all summer. The dude was go ball winner on tape at North Texas. Like, Kentucky's bringing in him, and they're going to want him to try to play slot. But the best thing he did was line up outside, beat man coverage, create separation, and get open down the field and make explosive plays for North Texas last year. You saw that on the go ball. Inside release, gets open. Was why he had to slow down for the football, but did a good job, I thought, walling off the cover guy. Had inside leverage on him. Made it kind of an easier throw for Vandegrift. I think you're going to see that. That's why, I wouldn't be surprised if you look up and he's leading the team in maybe not receptions or targets or maybe even yards, but yards per reception. I think he's going to be he's going to turn into their big play threat, the guy they take those vertical swings with on those scheme shot plays. I believe that's going to be with Jamori Macklin.
And it did feel like that was a little bit of a test lab sort of deal. It's like, all right, everybody gets a chance. Let's see who's going to do it.
That's exactly what that was. That's exactly what that was.
It was practice.
Right, it was practice
winning live reps. Yeah,
we're doing 3 right here. Let's see what you all can do. Barium was open. I will say that.
Yeah,
that was that was Brock probably wants that ball back. If it's more on a line or if he throws it earlier in the post, that's probably a touchdown. But he was open, and then I think they just had the right coverage for the Danke one, and then Macklin really just torched this guy off the line and created the explosive there.
One thing that I wanted to admit on this show where I think we were wrong, or at least erred in judgment, I don't believe we gave the linebackers enough credit preseason for just how good they are. Which, I mean, you mentioned is like, yeah, these linebackers, they might have 2 of the best in the SEC, but even too deep with Afari in there and Rayner. Like this, we mentioned that the strength of of this team really is the defensive line. It might be the LBs, and particularly because they can create so much chaos. They were responsible for the 2 turnovers last week, and that's the other part of this equation, Luckett, that. I mean, if this defense could get Anthony Richardson seeing ghosts out there, like, I have a feeling old Dumas Johnson and D-Jack are going to do something that has LaNorris Sellers head spinning, right? I can feel it in my bones. So if Kentucky is turning it over some, then you know what? That just go get the ball back, right? Go get it, defense, which, might lead me to believe that an under might be in play here.
Yeah, that recent performance against Anthony Richardson, I think that is one of the things I think makes you feel good about this game is that they've seen something similar to that. And Florida too, Nick, going back to that matchup, they had Ricky Pearsall, but that was Pearsall's second game at Florida, but it was just him at receiver. They really didn't have any other receivers. So receiver was an issue for that football team. It's kind of the same with South Carolina. You can see in Sellers' first road start, you could see that him potentially getting rattled, specifically after what we saw in that first game. Again, I think this favors Kentucky's matchup. I think stylistically how South Carolina probably wants to play on offense it's just going right into the teeth of the Kentucky defense. I think it's probably going to be a long day for that offense, and it's really on Kentucky's offense here. If the Kentucky's offense goes out and plays well, it's got a really good chance, I think, to be a comfortable, maybe even 3-possession win for the team. But they have to do it. They haven't done that against South Carolina yet. And it's got the potential, like you mentioned, to be just a slugfest. And both defenses dominate, too.
We will share our final picks tomorrow on Pigskin Preview. Also share more of Luckett's Locks, which they're doing all right. We're off to a pretty hard start.
Nice 8-2 rip. Week 1, 3-1 on the props. We hit the South Carolina team total under. We hit Miller Moss over passing yards. We hit Drew Alar over passing yards by 1 yard, but it's a cash. And then we missed Riley Leonard, and then 5-1 on our traditional game picks. The unders were good for us outside of Vandy, Virginia Tech, Eastern Michigan. Delivered as they always do as a road dog. So good first week there at KSR Plus. So get there. We'll be back with 10 picks on Friday.
Kevin asked if I'm going to take some ice cream, that famous Rupp Arena / Kroger Field ice cream, to Kirk Herbstreit if they come in week 3. There's some ice cream drama. I think Taylor Bells bought the soft serve that was at Rupp Arena. I don't know why they did, because their ice cream is far superior. You don't need to muddy the waters with soft serve. Your regular ice cream is delicious. I would.
Well, maybe it's to get a name on, because there's not a name on the soft serve. So maybe it's everyone can recognize.
Maybe, but I will say,
ice cream.
Taylor Bells, your product's great. If you want to give me some and we can sell it regularly on this podcast, I will happily do it, because you got a good product there. You got a good product. Free plug. If you please, some more, please. It's so good. It's so good. Just the regular cookies and cream. I don't know how you could eat that and then eat the soft serve and then willingly go out of your way to about the soft serve. Again, it's everything else they make is so much better than that soft serve. Suck it, Rupp Arena soft serve. A big ol' suck it to the soft serve. And a big ol' suck it to Billy Napier. Mr. Luckett, our favorite Sunbelt Billy, he's having to break the glass in case of emergency a little bit earlier. It might work out well for Napier, but Graham Mertz got a concussion in week 1 against Miami, and he's still in concussion protocol. So now Florida's going to turn to DJ Lagway, the former 5-star quarterback, the savior of Florida football, who's on Gatorade commercials, is the great Gator Hope. On the one hand, he's set up for success because it's against Samford, but on the other hand, this is really early to be going to DJ Lagway Luckett, and he's running out of cards. He's running out of hands he can play, right? Like I'm a poker player. I don't do it as often as I used to, but you start counting your chips towards the end, and you're like, I've only got like 2 hands left to play. If I get something, I got to play it. If Lagway isn't great right away, like really the only way this can work out well is if Lagway's awesome and he just hands him the keys for the rest of the season. Any other outcome, and he's kind of toast because he can't. When Mertz, where somebody would inevitably struggle early on, you're screwed. And then if he's just good enough, but he's like, you could have this like, well, we feel like we got to play DJ, but maybe he's not good enough to beat UCF. You know, like they could be in a real pickle here if this kid isn't just an ass kicker right from the jump.
It's like a baseball game where you think you have a really good closer, but you got to go to him in the top of the second inning. Right.
That early. Yeah. I mean, it is that early. Yeah.
You wanted to set, like, can we get into the 7th and then bring him out here and try to get 2 innings from here and shut this down and get this can kicked down the road to next year? To me, Nick, early off season, because like Florida's got their president was fired. They had to bring the old president back. There's some scandal going on there with the president, whatever happened there. Their athletic director, I don't think they're going to let him fire a third football coach, but he doesn't have a ball, like essentially a boss. And so Napier's Napier, they really invested for him to work. They finally built a football facility. They kind of went in on NIL and kind of didn't. They did the Rashada thing. It was a mess. But they've really invested in him and tried to make this work, and it's not working. Like, it's not going to work now. Like, it's done now. Like, that was it, like, on Saturday. It just was. It's it. It's over. We all know how this is going to end now. It's just, how bad does it get for him to be done? Because I firmly believe that they'll have a new coach next year. Somehow, some way, they'll figure it out. And so unless Lagway is just unbelievable, which I doubt that's going to happen because the receiver situation is not great. He's a true freshman playing a tough schedule, and their pass defense looks like it might still be unbelievably awful. And so, like, I think Naper's done. And, like, that's a hire that a lot of schools wanted him. He turned a lot of schools down. He takes Florida because they thought it was a turnkey type situation, and it just didn't work. Now, why didn't it work? Probably because a bunch of stuff changed, NIL,
Yeah.
all of the transfer portal, all of that. He wasn't quick to kind of adjust on the fly to that. And so
he didn't flip the
now,
roster right away via portal.
yes,
The Rashada stuff blew up in his face, and so that became discouraging for other recruits. Like really, the tenor was set early, and it was a bad one. So he
didn't retain his players either. Like ETN's playing at Georgia this year. Princely, Mielen's going to be an edge rusher at Ole Miss.
Jalen Farmer starting at Kentucky.
Yeah,
I mean,
didn't replace his. Well, even before that, like they lost Tyron Hopper, who went to Missouri and was awesome at Missouri.
Yeah.
So they've just Micah Mazakua, I think. He's going to be he's starting, I believe, right guard at Nebraska this year, and it sounds like Nebraska folks have been pretty happy with him there. So they didn't retain talent either, and so this was a guy who had all these resources and the support staff, like this monster support staff, and it just didn't work. And you just have to ask yourself. To me, I think the big topic with this is like where there's like 8-9 SEC schools where if they're not like competing for a national title within 3 years, their fan base wants their coach to be fired.
Yeah.
But like how many realistically out of this conference can do that?
And that's
and so what does that they can't, right?
Well, Kentucky plays them this year, right? Like South Carolina, Auburn, Florida. Those are
I wouldn't put South Carolina there, but I put Auburn there.
Well, where their fans just expect them to.
Yeah, I would put
right. They don't.
I'll put A&M I would put A&M in this group.
Yeah.
But right now, like it's like Georgia, and so Kirby, and then like I think other than that, it's gonna be. We'll see what Sark can do at Texas.
Yeah.
And what DeBoer can do at Alabama, but other than that,
LSU,
it's kind of to me, it's kind of going to be a rotation. Like you're going to get up there and then you're going to fall back. You're going to get up there and then you're going to fall back, and it's that walking up and down an escalator. And so, what does that do for some of these schools? The schools that finish, 6th, 7th, 5th, 8th, like, and how quick is that turnover? And then can schools like Kentucky, schools like South Carolina, schools like Arkansas, who have some stability in some continuity and are retaining talent, how quickly can they pass those schools because of all the just unrest and turnover, and then quietly get themselves into a position to make the playoff? Like, I think Ole Miss is doing this right now. I think Missouri is kind of in position to do this, and that's where Kentucky has got to get, where you can be consistent and kind of work quietly and then strike when there's unrest or unevenness at some of these other schools. And for Napier, like, you never really know on these coaching hires. He turned down Auburn, turned down Mississippi State, turned down a few others to take this Florida job. And it's just not going to work. And he's going to finish with a losing record. And who knows what they look like when Kentucky goes to town. Because I believe they go Furman or Sanford this week.
Yeah.
Then they go
to
A&M at home. Mississippi State, who will score points.
Right.
And then I think they have a bye.
UCF
at home, who might have the best rushing game in college football, or one of the best. Then they go to Tennessee. Then they play Kentucky.
Yeah.
Like, they could be absolutely gassed by that Kentucky game. Like, who knows? And I thought he would probably survive this year as long as he got to 6-6, 7-5. But I didn't think he'd have to play this Lagway card this early. This was the ultimate nightmare for him, scenario for him. In my opinion, you get blasted by Miami. Your pass defense is still awful. You get beaten every facet of the game, and then your quarterback takes an absolute beating, gets a concussion, and then you have to play this true freshman. And like, how are you going to go back to Mertz after this unless Lagway is bad?
Yeah. It's a nightmare for him, and it's a real shame. But there's no way you can possibly start a year 3 off worse
Hot
than by
seat in week 2, baby. I love
than
it.
by it's his worst loss as a head
Yeah.
coach at Florida, the worst margin of defeat, and it's to an in-state team who hired a guy in the same year that you were hired. I mean, I know Cristobal has the Miami connection, so they were able to bring him from Oregon, but still, like that's whatever can go wrong will go wrong in Gainesville.
And they've their high school recruiting, Miami and Florida, is kind of similar. Miami just used the portal better. So, like, you saw the two rosters, it was just like, whoa. Like, their roster's better than ours. What's going on? It shouldn't be this much better.
It's it's a real shame. It's a real shame to see the Florida Gators struggle. Man, it'd be real tough if it had to happen again this weekend. But we'll see how it all unfolds Saturday. It's great that we only had 2 days off of football. This is one of the nights where we're off of football. NFL kicks off tomorrow. We've got a game in Sao Paulo on Friday. Luckett, is everybody going to take your Bengals in Survivor League this week? Are you going to be enjoying yourself at all?
They're going to be a popular pick in Survivor League. That's no doubt about it. I think it's the biggest line week 1. I think it's right at 9.
I guess that might even be the play in Survivor, just to follow whoever the Patriots play. They'll win 3 or 4 games, but the other question is, if the Bengals are good, do you want to burn them in week 1 against the Pats? You know,
you got to think about that. That's always Survivor's tough. It's a tough game to play, but excited to get up there on Sunday, see the all orange jerseys. It'll be fun to get up there.
The Cincinnati Volunteers.
Burrow throw it around.
That's my NFL lock I'm giving out. Joe Burrow MVP. He's due.
What you get it? 5-1, 6-1?
I haven't locked it in yet. I think it was 7 last I saw. So let's go ahead and do that, shall we? We'll do that, but we're gonna get out of here first. Mr. Luckett, safe travels back tonight. Don't hit any deer. Don't hit any. Somebody said a parlay for.
Someone said over under on my critters I hit. I think.
And they wanted. Somebody had a parlay for a squirrel, a raccoon, and over a half a deer. So that's the parlay they've got run together. So
there was also an animal that ran out in front of my car, Nick. That I don't know what it was, but an animal ran out in front of me.
Probably a coyote.
I think I missed it. It probably was a coyote. That probably sounds right. F-bomb or 2 may have been dropped in that car after I hit the deer, and I got coyotes and possums just making a beeline for my car.
This is what happens. You go out to the country and you start running over animals left and right.
Kilmer's coyotes just will not leave me alone football season.
Well, safe travels back tonight to the country, Mr. Luckett. I'm Nick Roush. This has been 11 Personnel. Go Cats and go Kroger.